I am standing beside the most feared monster truck in America. Hi, everyone. I'm Richard Leake. This is the gravedigger of Dennis Anderson, and he comes home to the state of Virginia tonight looking for another win on the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge, straight ahead on ESPN.
Powertrax presents the most powerful sport on earth, the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Richmond International Raceway, where Army Armstrong, once again, all the superstars of monster truck racing on hand, but one truck that may not be here tonight. He's the equalizer of David Morris. He was in a terrible crash the last time we were here, and a lot of people say the cause of that crash may have been this very dangerous track.
Well, I don't know if the track is dangerous or not. What it is, the monster truck track is actually located on the pit row of the NASCAR facility here. And it's a good, safe track because it has walls, but the walls are something the monster truck drivers are not used to running against, especially at the speeds they're going. So the wall does not give you a cushion at all. If you're not straight when you go to the final set of cars for your final jump, you're in trouble, and that's exactly what happened to the equalizer.
So basically, there's no room for error on this racetrack. And what about David Morris? He's been working all week. Will he race tonight? We're going to check into that story and get all the first-round action underway. Coming up next on ESPN.
Powertrax and the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge is brought to you by the heartbeat of America, today's Chevy trucks.
And welcome back to the Richmond International Raceway, where it's the major league of professional monster truck racing, Renegades TNT Motorsport style. We are about to see the superstars of monster truck racing on the track, and one superstar we are waiting to find out if he's going to be here tonight is the #1 points leader in the national standings, David Morris, and the equalizer, Army.
Well, David Morris and his owner, builder of the truck, Gary Cook, have been thrashing feverishly to get the truck back together after last week's violent flip. He was running USA 1 when right at the finish line, he nosed him out, but what happened right after that could make history. A little bit of a short bounce, just about a foot from the finish line, and what happened had the people in Richmond, Virginia standing and holding their breath for just a few minutes, Richard.
Now, almost unbelievably, David almost took it over on the driver's side, but how did he compensate to get it over?
What happened, the left spindle broke, and that caused what they called a high side. It made the truck bounce over, so the impact actually took place on the passenger side of the truck. As the truck stopped, he's unbuckling and immediately steps right out of the truck. The TNT crew was right there, but believe me, that was a violent accident, Richard Leake.
But unbelievably, the driver, David Morris, a little shaken up, but otherwise okay, and this has been the scene. David Morris, the driver, and Gary Cook, the owner-designer, working feverishly on the equalizer truck. We talked to the owner, Gary Cook, to describe what he and driver David Morris had to repair on the equalizer.
We broke the axle and spindle off the left-hand side, the steering knuckle on the right-hand side, the tie rods, the steering cylinders, the shocks.
Other than that, though, the truck's fine, right?
Yeah, other than the body work. We're going to try to get it running tonight, though. We don't ever give up.
Well, they did not give up because we have got great news. The equalizer is ready to rock and roll. They will be racing tonight. And let's look at our pairings, as that is Gary Porter of the Carolina Crusher. He is getting a bye run, which he is about to make as our top qualifier this afternoon here in Richmond. After Carolina Crusher, it's Wild Hair taking on Stomper. Then we're going to be seeing Equalizer, unbelievably, back on the track, going up against the Mad Dog and one of the Breen brothers. Scott Stevens, King Crunch, will face Nightlife with Dave Wysorick. It'll be the Gravedigger of Dennis Anderson against the Ford No Problem and Jammin' John Moore. Leadfoot with Ron Dennis takes on Bennett Clark and Clydesdale. And then it's Awesome Kong with the Flying Texan, Steve Kane, against the Jersey Outlaw of Mad Mike Wine. That's the way they're going to come out to race in this first round of action, Army.
Well, Richard, everybody's really excited about this because all the drivers realize if they're going to win the national championship, they have to start their move now. And qualifying this afternoon was violent. This qualifying to be awfully important because it pairs you in the rounds of eliminations, and qualifying has even taken its toll as far as braking equipment, as USA 1, one of the premier trucks, literally broke the drive shaft in half getting his qualifying run in, Rich.
You're going to have to call USA 1 the premier truck because he is the defending Renegades TNT National Champion, but a broken transmission in qualifying, he is not going to be racing tonight. So as you said, this track continues to be very tough on these drivers. But now let's go side-by-side racing. First up, it is Bob Breen driving the Wild Hare Chevrolet, and he is going to be taking on Starvin Marvin Smith, the Stomper Chevy. Both of these trucks fairly equal in horsepower.
Well, they're equal in horsepower. The difference comes in the location of the engine. They both run supercharged big block Chevrolets. The Wild Hare engine located behind the driver, the Stomper engine located in front of the driver in a normal stock position. Bob Breen is really starting to put his act together for the B-Boys Racing Toys out of Missouri. And he's going to, man, look at this, Richard, a good run, a smooth run, considering the track surfaces. Marvin Smith having some kind of problem. I don't know what his problem was, but Wild Hare will be back.
Stomper sits aboard the junk cars with a broken transmission. Bob Breen, the winner in Wild Hare.
The track looks real spooky. Is there any starting, ideas up there? Is it better to leave quick or try to roll out of the hole? What's the status up there?
I think the idea for me is to leave quick and hit them good and straight, because everybody's going to, seems like the track on both lanes is everybody's going to the left. If you got to hit them straight and just keep her hammered.
And there you see the Stomper Chevrolet of Starvin Marvin Smith. He's being towed back to the pit area, and staging at the starting line next is John Breen, driver of Mad Dog, the Chevrolet, a real veteran of monster truck racing, 7 years in a truck. And look who he is racing. Quite a story. It's Dangerous David Morris, the equalizer driver, the rookie, the current national points leader, and he is racing despite the violent crash he went through a week ago, Army.
Well, Richard, they always say you got to get a hair of the dog that bit you. In this case, it's a bad dog that the equalizer's trying to put away, and this kid has not lost a thing. He is back and attacking the track. It's good to see it. David Morris is alive and well and strong in monster truck racing.
And we talked to David earlier today about what it was going to be like getting back into the monster truck after going through a violent crash like he did.
I made my qualifying pass, checked everything out. I think the truck's working just as well as it was before it was rolled, so I'm going to just run it as best I can.
Dave, are you a little bit nervous getting back in the truck? It was an awfully violent flip you went through. I know you thrashed on it, but you had to buckle in the seat. First time, what went through your mind when you got back in the truck?
Well, really the first thing that went back in my mind was just taking a landing and being sure that I'm on the throttle in case I'm up on the front wheels or whatever happens. But I feel like last night it was just a failure in equipment. I think a tie rod broke, let one of my front wheels go back around and ripped it off the truck, and then it just sent it into a roll.
Gary Cook put you back in a good truck. Can you win this thing tonight?
I think I can.
Yeah, he's got a lot of confidence, but we've got a lot more trucks to go. First round action continues straight ahead on ESPN. And we are back with more first-round action on the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge from Richmond International Raceway in Virginia. And coming up next is going to be Dave Lysoric, the driver of the Nightlife Chevrolet from Grand Island, Nebraska, 27-year-old four-year veteran of monster truck racing, and he is facing a dandy in Scott Stevens and King Crunch. Scott is out of the Woodlands area of Texas, and he'll be driving the Chevrolet Extend-A-Cab.
Well, Scott Stevens is going to be driving what we're going to call the high-tech truck. A lot of computer engineering, engine location to the rear, supercharged engine. Stevens will be working his side of the track, which is the far side, right side, Nightlife. Lysoric trying to come back and work the left side, but watch Stevens.
Close race.
Oh, I can't tell from my viewpoint. Richard, what did it look like to you?
I couldn't tell. I'm waiting for the radio word from track officials as they came across the finish line, nearly dead heat, but there's the word. Scott Stevens gets the win by a tire tread over Dave Lysoric. So it's going to be the King Crunch Chevrolet advancing into the quarterfinals. A great race by both of these guys, as Scott Stevens will now move on. And in the next round, he is going to be going up against the winner of the Mad Dog Equalizer race, which was David Morris.
Boy, Richard, look who's coming out now. It's going to be the old pro against a home state boy. No problem for it against The grave digger.
And we call John Moore Jammin' John Moore now. You know why?
Yeah, those breeches he wears.
He wears the brightest breeches in the pit area you'd ever want to see.
All you young guys that ride the bicycles and the skateboard, John Moore is over 40 years old and wears jams just like you do. Thus the name Jammin' John Moore.
Plus, he jams that Ford no problem as they are staged and ready to race. Dennis Anderson, kind of the hometown hero here in Virginia.
Both trucks lead real good. Now the second set of cars is going to, hey, they're really going after it now. Richard, look at this. They're both in trouble.
Digger goes over the wall. People scatter in the pits, but John Moore in no problem has hit the wall. He has got busted tires. Here's the replay at the finish line. Unbelievable, Army.
Well, the grave digger, he takes a bad bounce on the left side of your screen, but look at Moore. He's trying to stay off the wall on the right side of the screen. Both drivers were literally fighting for their lives.
And Dennis Anderson cleared the wall. John Moore hit the wall. He has got damage on the no problem machine. Let's go down to Army, who's going to be talking to Dennis Anderson of Gravedigger.
Dennis Anderson, to say it was wild would be an understatement. You know, they put these pit walls up to keep people out of the pit area.
Yeah, they did. Walls aren't very tall for these big monsters, and I come off the end of the cars in a real weird bounce, and I was afraid that I was going to, if I crammed on the brakes to keep from getting over the wall, I might flip the truck over. I really don't know what happened. I kind of got shook up and shook around a little bit, so I just dove for the wall.
What goes through your mind when you're coming over this finish line and you're that close together? You got together actually in the middle of the track and it went away from each other.
Right, well, that's what it was. I think we kind of got scared. Both of us got together. I'd rather tie up with the wall in a way than tie up with somebody else's truck, because I feel like the wall is not that tall. I can get over the wall without tearing the truck up. But if I get into somebody else's truck, there's going to be some severe damage.
This has got to be the greatest action in motorsports racing. Coming up next, it's going to be the pretty in pink truck. I kid him about that. Bennett Clark, driver of Clydesdale, up against Ron Dennis, Leadfoot. Leadfoot hails from Flagstaff, Arizona.
Well, the Arizona native is going to be working the left lane. Clydesdale will be coming out of the right lane. Everybody knows the story about the Clydesdale. Ex-Brahma bull rider. Again, trying to make a name for himself. Had a little bit of problem now. There is that path that Clydesdale finished.
But did you see what happened midway down the course? Leadfoot got out of shape and almost hit the rear end of the Clydesdale machine. So Ron Dennis, no matter how he finished here, was going to be disqualified for getting off course. Your winner is going to be Bennett Clark and Clydesdale as Ron Dennis now brings it across the finish line. That is going to bring up next the Jersey Outlaw, the Ford of Mike Wine. He is from Pensacola, New Jersey, up against the Flying Texan from Killeen, Texas, Steve Kane, and the Awesome Kong Skinny Chevrolet.
Supercharged engine to the rear. Awesome Kong, one of the premier trucks on the tour last year, and Steve Kane took over the driving chores and doing a yeoman's job this year. He draws another new driver in the Ford camp, Jersey Outlaw, and look at the Chevrolet work that left side of perfection. He's coming on real strong.
No contest.
Yeah. They are really starting to gel. They're coming together as a team, and this kid's doing a great job of driving the Awesome truck.
So Steve Kane and Awesome Kong advances to the quarterfinals to join Carolina Crusher, Wild Hair, Equalizer, King Crunch, the Gravedigger, and Clydesdale. The quarterfinals are straight ahead on Powertrax. Powertrax from Richmond, Virginia, the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge, where quarterfinal action about to begin. It'll be the Wild Hair going up against Carolina Crusher. The story thus far today has been the walls. One truck over it, one truck into it. We asked Bob Breen, the driver of Wild Hair, about that.
Well, it's real narrow. You got a wall on each side of the cars on both lanes, and I'm going to be real careful. Last night I got a little bit crooked, but I managed to get it straightened back out before I got close to the wall. And if you don't hit the car straight when you first hit them, then you're going to be in trouble before you ever come off of them, because you're going to get into that wall as tight as it is. There's not enough room between the wall and the cars for the truck to get in there.
Well, let's watch the action. The green light is out, and here they go.
Well, the Carolina Crusher leads quick. Bob Breen said if you're going to win, you got to leave on the starting line. They're pulling it up. Another bad bounce. Look at this, Richard.
And now he's on the wall. Bob Breen and Wild Hair is on the wall. He just talked about keeping it straight.
Richard, the driver, he's taking a lick. The driver's not moving around in the truck that much. We may have some problems down here. Let's check it out.
Well, I see the door opening on the Wild Hair machine. Bob Breen obviously shaken up. Medical crew on their way over. There you see Bob. He is stretching the neck out. I'll tell you, that was a violent ride down and over the walls for Bob Breen and Wild here. Here's the replay. Maybe you can tell exactly where he gets out of shape.
What happens, the finish line bounce right there. Now, it throws him sideways. The truck has to land one more time, but the right side of the truck climbs a wall. A 4-foot wall is nothing for a monster truck. Where the injury came, I believe, is when the truck stopped just suddenly. Just all of a sudden just stopped from about 60 miles an hour.
Bob Breen, a monster truck racer for 5 years, shaken up. And let's go down to Army, who has him right now next to his truck.
A little bit dizzy when you came out?
Yeah, my head hit the roll bar, and I got cooking in between the cars, and I couldn't get it straightened out, and I should have backed out, and I didn't do it.
You're going to be okay, though?
Yeah, I'm fine. It's kind of scared me more than anything else, I think.
This has been some kind of race course for these guys. We've seen now 3 trucks involved in a wall collision. Bob Breen, as he said, a little shaken, but he's going to be all right.
Well, you know, the people of Richmond are used to seeing quality motorsports. This is no exception this evening, is it?
And now let's get ready for a great race, as it's going to be the Clydesdale of Bennett Clark up against Awesome Kong and Steve Kane.
Okay, a pan to start. Awesome Kong leads first. Now the Clydesdale's got to come back on the finish line. Richard, he's not going to do it. This kid out of Texas is starting to flex his muscle.
Steve Kane and Awesome Kong advances to the semifinals, and we advance on in the quarterfinals, and our next one ought to be what we might call a real high-tech race. We already know about David Morris and the Equalizer and his high-tech operation. Scott Stevens and King Crunch, they also running a brand new truck, and we talked to Scott about that earlier.
1989, you come out with a brand new truck, Scott. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, well, we've done a lot of changes. You know, we really think the TNT is the future of the monster trucks. And our season last year was a little bit unhappy. You know, we really weren't competitive. So we kind of took what we think the best trucks out there right now are Gravedigger and USA 1. And our truck's kind of a takeoff of those 2 trucks. And we've done a couple of passes with it, and it seems to be working real good. The rear engine is definitely a Gravedigger original deal. Then USA 1's truck was just handling so well last year. You know, I thought sometimes maybe he wasn't making as much power, but his truck just handled every obstacle he came up against. So we went with a real long leaf spring. We've added a new autometer computer. That's a new LTM. That way, every pass we make when we come back, you know, it's hard for me to tell the guys, you know, how hard I turned the motor, when it shifted, turn the computer on. We know that, you know, it took us a 7-second pass, but we can tell, you know, at 100 feet, it shifted to second, and whenever it shifted to third, or here lately, you know, sometimes it hadn't been shifting. And also the radio, that way, when I'm at the line with the rear engine, I just don't know what's going on back there. It's a lot quieter for me, and Kevin can tell me, you know, when I need to, you know, when the motor's coming apart, I'm throwing things out of it. And when I start driving, a lot of times I don't pay attention to something, and he can tell me what's going on.
Well, 2 high-tech trucks are waiting for, I guess we might say, liftoff.
Boy, lift off they do, but look at the kid in the Equalizer. Oh, they're open. That finish line set of cars is really getting spooky, but David Morris, you would not know what he's been through, Richard. That kid is right back where he was, driving so aggressive, he's going to move to the next round.
And look who is coming out to face each other in this quarterfinals. It's a replay of the first round.
Yeah, but Richard, there's one big difference. Can you notice what it is?
No.
They've swapped sides of the track. Dennis Anderson doesn't want anything to do with that right lane. He jumped the wall. John Moore doesn't want anything to do with the left lane. He got into the wall. I think they have made a gentleman's agreement. Let's try it this way.
Here they go. Gravedigger, and no problem. It looks all Digger.
Yeah, Gravedigger definitely doing his thing, and they both go straight as an arrow.
But let's stand up and give an applause to Jammin' John Moore, Lafayette, Tennessee. A good run coming back from having busted tires and other problems. He's out of it now, though. But we're back with the semifinals coming up next on Powertrax.
Powertrax and the Renegade's TNT Monster Truck Challenge is brought to you by TNT Motorsports, the nation's leader in pulling and monster truck racing.
There will be no tomorrow. Welcome back to Powertrax. We're in the semifinals of the Renegade TNT Monster Truck Challenge as the sun sets in Richmond, Virginia. The action about to really fire up. It's Carolina Crusher, Gary Porter, number 2 in the point standings, up against dangerous David Morris, the equalizer, number 1 in the point standings.
Richard, this could be a run that could determine the national championship. The reason being, Porter has to put this kid away. You've got to start getting the equalizer out of the points program early in the races. And if Porter's going to do it, he's got to do it right now. Trying to pull in on the national championship. Look at this.
Great race, but it's got to be Gary Porter with the win. Porter with the win and Carolina Crusher. So finally, the Cinderella story for David Morris and the equalizer comes to an end as we go trackside with your winner.
Gary Porter going to the finals, big boy, on a tough, tough night.
It is. It's very tough way. The equalizer, he's tough. He's running first in the points. I'm second, and I'm trying to gain on and take that first place points this year.
You're definitely going to gain on him. You just put him out in that round so you can advance or pull up quite a few more points if you win this thing tonight. Only going to take one more race to do that. The starting line set up is going to be the Gravedigger going against Awesome Kong. Do you have any preference who you want to go against in the final?
Well, neither really. But both of them is going to be running strong, and this is going to be a good race coming up.
All I can say is Gravedigger against Awesome Kong. That says it all.
Keep an eye on the red lights. The people from Virginia, they're going to be pulling for their man, the Gravedigger. Meanwhile, Texas is trying to put him away. It's a good start, Richard. Both trucks a little bit out of shape. It's up to the drivers now, and
it's Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger.
Oh, he's coming across. Oh, some heads-up driving, Richard Lee.
So Dennis Anderson and Gravedigger makes it to the final round as the Flying Texan Steve Kane finally gets grounded.
Dennis Anderson, I'm going to be short and sweet. Gary said he's going to thump you in the final. I asked him if he wanted to run any preference in the final. You're Awesome Kong. He said, I want to get a hold of the Gravedigger. I'm going to thump him right here in his own hometown.
Well, I can tell you what, he might thump me, but it ain't going to be no easy thump.
Army, I think you're an instigator. I didn't hear Porter say that.
No, when he walked away from me, away from the camera, he looked back and said, Gravedigger's who I want.
All right, well, that's coming up next. Coming up first, though, is our question of the week about these monsters. This question of the week about the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge Series comes to us from Tim and Tammy Warner of Smyrna, Tennessee. And they'd like to know how the monster truck drivers typically spend their day the afternoon before an evening race. Well, Tim and Tammy, for these guys, it's just another long, hard day of work. They're either repairing their trucks from breakdowns from previous races, or they're trying to work on the trucks to find out the right combinations to hopefully run well that night. In either case, it's a day filled with a lot of sweat and a lot of sore muscles, resulting hopefully in a few minutes of glory on the racetrack. And if you have a question of the week about the Renegades TNT Monster Truck Challenge Series, send it to us at TNT Motorsports, 5515 Poplar Park Boulevard, Louisville, Kentucky, 40228. And if we use one of your questions on a future ESPN broadcast, we'll send you free a TNT Motorsports hat. And it's time to name the best of the beast in Richmond. Gravedigger, 28-year-old Dennis Anderson against Carolina Crusher, 27-year-old Gary Porter.
Well, Richard, it's almost an ideal setup. Both of them powered by Chevrolet. One of them's 51-year model Chevrolet, that being the Gravedigger, engine in the rear. Going against him, front motor, Chevrolet, 89-year model Porter against the Gravedigger. Who's it going to be? It's side by side over the first jump.
Here comes Porter.
Boom. Boy, Gary Porter really helped his cause in trying to win that national championship, Richard, with that win right there.
Well, with that win, we understand Gary Porter will leapfrog into first place now in the national championship point standings.
What went on back in the pit area? I know you guys are good friends until you put those helmets on. We knew we were going to see a war, and that's exactly what we did see.
It is. You know, we friends. We help each other in the pits, but when it comes to racing, you know, we're for ourselves. You know, we go out and try to beat the other guy.
This is definitely going to help you in this national points chase, isn't it? You were, in what position were you before you came into this event?
Before this event, I was running 8 points behind Equalizer. I was running second place, and this win may have put me in first place. I'm not sure yet.
Well, the Carolina Crusher has buried the Gravedigger tonight, taking over the national points championship lead, but he's followed closely by the Equalizer and Gravedigger. And keep your eye on USA 1, your defending champion. We are off to New York. We'll join you from there on Powertrax. For Army Armstrong, I'm Richard Lake. We'll see you again on the tracks across America.